Hey everyone, welcome to another $1,000 strap search. I've got my $1,000 in singles here and I'm about to show you what I found. But before I do, let's talk about this week's tip. I've noticed a couple people are out there and using one of the tips that I had mentioned before as far as saving money goes. And I appreciate that. I think it's great to see that people are actually using some of the little bits of knowledge that I happen to throw out there. For those of you who don't know, what I'm talking about is this. What I've got here is a strap of singles. And, well, you've noticed that some of the notes that I bring out are quite expensive. Well, part of the way that you can get notes at a good price is to have cash on hand in order to make those purchases. If you have the cash, you're able to pull the trigger when you come across a good deal. Nothing is worse than finding a great deal on a note and not having the money to pay for it. So, what I do is I started off with a strap of singles. And I simply do not spend $5 bills. Anytime I get a $5 bill, I will take my 5 and I will put it into the strap and I will take out one of the $1 bills. That way there's always 100 notes in this strap, and the top of it is singles, the bottom of it is 5s. And like I said, as I go through, before you know it, now, this one isn't all the way full yet. I still got another 30 or so to go. But when I convert all of these into 5s, I then have $500 instead of $100. Now, I don't miss having a $5 bill. If I spend a $20 bill somewhere and I get a 5 and change, okay, I just take the 5 and replace it here, and I take a note out of here, so I still have money. It's not like I'm just putting money away. By doing it that way, I remember to do it. And I find myself trying to acquire $5 bills, maybe asking, hey, do you have 2 5s instead of a 10? By doing that, that allows me to put money away even easier. So yeah, that's my tip for this week. Just a reminder on a great way to start saving money. Anytime you get a 5, put it in a strap. Before you know it, you'll have $500 there. All right, so there's my 1,000 in singles. Let's take a look at what I found this week. Here we go. Starting off, I found 4 pairs, 44660022. Don't know if it's worth anything, don't really care. I find it neat, and that's the important thing. When you collect notes and you do your bill searches, if you see something that you find cool, that is the reason to save it. It's nice to know what's worth money because you always want to save the stuff that's worth money. But remember, if you think it's neat, you should hold on to it. It's your hobby. It's not anybody else's. You don't have to explain to anybody. Just be aware that I'm probably not going to get any additional money for this one, but it doesn't change the fact that I find it cool. All right, found some trinaries, 5s, 6s, and 8s on this one. This one's 5s, 7s, and 9s. Quads, quad 1s on this one. Quad 6s here. And this one actually has 5 of a kind. This one's a trinary, 1s, 4s, and 7s, but it starts off with 5 4s. So those are always nice to see together like that. Did find some stars. This one is pretty rough. This one's a lot nicer. 2017. 2017, really good shape on this one. Another 2017 as well. 2013, getting older. 2013 here. And another one. This one starts off with a couple zeros. I've explained that one in the past, so who knows, maybe. Now, this star note I wanted to talk about just for a split second because of the condition. Here, let me pull this one out here. Now, you see this crease that's here? Do you see how it makes it fold just like that? Well, this particular crease happened after printing. This happened in circulation. But there are times that a crease can happen like this in a note while it is being printed. And when that happens, if I pull this apart, you can see how that forms a little bit of a gutter. And that part wouldn't have any printing in it. That's called a gutter fold error. Now this one, of course, obviously was printed, so it is not an error. When I pull it apart like that, you can see everything is still there. But that is what a gutter fold error would look like if that happened prior to printing. If that crease was there before the note got printed, you would then pull it apart and have that error like that. So I just happened to catch that when I was going through there. Thought I'd point it out in case. That's part of the reason why you always want to double check how all the corners are, and whenever you get anything folded over. This one I made sure to pull that apart just to see if that was a gutter fold error. It wasn't, but don't forget to check for that kind of thing. All right, got a couple more. This one is pretty rough. This one, yeah, also rough as well. 2013, still rough condition. Then we get some older notes. This one's 1999. Another 1999, much better shape on this one. 1995, not a web note. One of the first things I'm checking for on those is the web note. 1995, also not a web note. This one is really nice, 1988A, not a web note. And the oldest note in the group, check this out, a 1974. 1974 found in circulation, and it is actually fairly crisp. So that is a great find. 1974 $1 bill. It is Chicago. That's kind of a bummer, but still a great note anyway. All right, so that's what I found this week. What did I pull out from my box? Well, last week I talked about a 1935A silver certificate. So I brought out another 1935A silver certificate. This particular one from 1935A, you'll notice has an S on it. Now that S is supposed to be there. That is not a counter stamp. That was printed there on purpose. This is one of the experimental notes from the 1935 series. Now, in 1935, we'll take a quick peek at the back. Does not say "In God We Trust." That wasn't until 1935G, but this one's 1935A. So, in 1935, they decided to do an experiment, and they wanted to try a different coating on the bills to see if it made the notes last longer. So what they did is they put out a bunch of notes that had a bright red R on them, and those were the regular notes. Those were the same notes that they've been using the entire time. They put out just over 1 million, I think 1.1 million of those notes, and then they printed just as many of the notes that had this S. Now, the notes with the S were given the special coating to see if they'd last any longer, and once the notes were released, they figured they'd wait a certain amount of time and then have the banks pull these notes and send them back so they could compare the wear patterns. The problem is people saw these and they weren't very subtle with the R and the S, and it got a lot of people's attention, and people would not treat these notes as they would treat regular notes. So you had some people were saving them, some people would hold on to them until they were recalled. So it wasn't a fair assessment of how well the coating worked. Thus, the experiment was a failure. It doesn't change the fact that these notes are out there, and they are only one of a million, essentially, 1.1 million. 1.1 million R's, 1.1 million S's. That's all that was ever out there in circulation. You can imagine how many of them were actually returned for this, so that doesn't leave a whole lot left. Once again, take a quick peek at the back. Let's see what the book has to say about this one. The 1935A S note. So here is that's the 1935A right there. And if we look, you can see all the A's because they made the regular ones and then they made the R and the S notes, 1.184, 1,184,000 notes. Now, the S note starts off at about $65. Check out the 12,000 star notes. 12,000 star notes. Those start off at $1,500. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can read all these numbers. So yeah, the S note starts off at about 60, quickly works its way to 110 in decent condition, 140 once you get up to a fairly nice note, and you're talking $650 for one that's gem mint. A mere $13,500 for the star note. So yeah, that would be my 1935A S note, the special coating, the S on there, and I did, of course, happen to bring out the R note, so you've got them side by side. The R note, the S note, both 1935A. Fairly affordable notes. I didn't put them in my top 10 notes because if you're going to get one, you have to get the other, and that's going to put you over $100. These are a little tough to find. You're lucky to find one of them in a show, so it's not like you can compare 5 or 6 of them and pull the best one. A lot of the times you're simply grabbing whatever you can find because they are fairly rare, and I do expect demand to be going up on notes like this. All right, guys, that's what I've got for you this week. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. Go ahead and share this and tell your friends so they know about this. And It's always a great way to find out how to add little things to your collection. I really appreciate all the comments that you guys leave. I do my best to try to answer all of those. So I just want to say, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys watching every week. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week.